Welcome back to the Shortcoat Podcast, a production of the University of Iowa Carver College of Medicine. I'm Dave Etler. Here's some of what we've got for you on today's show.
If you're saying that the MCAT score is low and it's not going up with enough practice, then maybe start to look at other ways to improve your resume.
I don't know, but if you wrap cooked bacon around your neck and you're sleeping in my bedroom, you're gonna feel something interesting in the middle of the night when I need a little pick-me-up. Joining me in the studio are my delightful, magical, and yet salt-of-the-earth medical students, including M4 Nick Lind.
Hi, Dave.
We've got M1 Mallory Kalish on the show.
Hello.
Over here, we've got Matt Engelken, who's also an M1.
Howdy.
And M1 Noah Wick.
Hey.
Thanks for coming to the show with me today, to hang out with me on a Friday afternoon. I like it. No? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Hey, it's so great to be here, Dave.
Was that a call and response
That's
situation?
fine.
Okay.
It's fine. I don't expect, when I speak, I don't expect people to respond. No, but,
Okay.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, we're just going to sit here in silence for the rest of the podcast. It's all you, Dave. It's your show.
Bunch of jerks. Today's show is sponsored by, well, us, the Shortcoat Podcast. If you listen on the regular, then I hope you'll help us support the show. You can get a free token of my thanks for it, or some other stuff that we have coming up. We'll talk about that opportunity later on in the show.
Ooh,
an opportunity. This week we've got a question from an anonymous listener I'm going to call Cuddles Mad Sparrow.
Okay.
I don't know why. It just came to me.
Did you like one of those name generator things?
Let's not talk about that.
Okay.
is it like your first pet's name, the street you grew up on?
Yeah. Cuddles is concerned about his specific career aspirations in medicine. Let's hear from Cuddles.
I have a question about reapplications. I graduated from undergrad in 2021 with a major in biology and minors in biochemistry and music. My MCAT score was on the low end of a lot of schools I applied to, and I will more than likely have to reapply after retesting. My grade point average was often at or above averages of the schools I applied to. My problem is that my practice MCAT scores really have not been budging after months of studying. I am having a difficult time reconciling my long-term career goals, being an academic physician, with the reality that I just may not be accepted at the type of school I believe will best prepare me for that goal. An MD granting medical school attached to a large academic health center. It's hard to put it any other way. But when I have this goal in mind, attending a DO school or small, private, new MD school seems to mean I need to change the goal, or that it may be harder to achieve based on where I am. And am not accepted. Is there a way I can change this mindset, or new perspectives you could offer to help in this regard as I reapply to a list of schools that I did not picture myself attending when I started my pre-med path? Thank you guys. I enjoy listening to you all while doing research in med labs.
Got a local on our hands.
Whoa.
Nice.
Go ahead.
Oh, I don't know. I guess. No, I have some strong thoughts about this. I just got off a rotation with, I had a DO and an MD resident who were both interns with me, and then an MD senior. And I don't know. I think that you can still get those opportunities in residency if you really have that desire to have an academic career. There are plenty of academics here at the University of Iowa that have DOs.
Yeah.
Are they? Do you know of any who are doing actual research?
I mean, not like right offhand, but
That's
I'm
all
sure
right.
there are.
That's all right. I mean, yeah. I mean, there. I'm sure there are.
I mean, one of our course directors last semester was a DO. So if you want to go into like the teaching side of academics, there's plenty of DOs to look at Carver that can show you that it's possible from the DO track.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe there are like DO PhD track programs as well. So there are institutions where you can get plenty of research experience. You might want to seek that out specifically when you're applying to DO schools, but I wouldn't count off all DO schools because you want an academic career. I think if you want an academic career, you can make sure you get an academic career.
Right. I think too, I mean, they had mentioned, right, that they're already a reapplicant, right?
They're now going to have to reapply.
Now going to have to reapply.
They just got denials, and now they're.
I mean, I think as always with like applying to medical school, if you are worried, or I think if you don't get in where you want to your first try, that's like your choice is to reapply. Or if you do go the DO route and apply to some other schools that might not be, I don't know, the way they were putting it in their ideal dream plan, you know, it is their choice whether or not if they want to reapply after. I think it's a little, I don't know, if it sounds like they already have like, I want to be an academic medical professional like as my endgame career, and I think, you know, you need to reevaluate, and it's like, well, is it that I want to be a physician more so, or, you know, am I just trying to thinking a little bit too far ahead almost, it sounds like.
Maybe.
You know?
Yeah. I don't know what underlies the desire for research / academic medicine. He does mention research specifically as opposed to teaching. So we'll take him at that. We'll take that at face value.
Yeah. So like it depends what kind of research you want to do as well. So like if you want to do bench research, you're probably going to have to be at an institution where there's a lot of bench research going on, both for medical school and for residency. I mean, I don't know that there's a lot of time to do a lot of bench research in residency. There's not a lot of time to do bench research in medical school either. But there are a lot of other research opportunities if you're doing like some sort of translational research, you know, doing drug trials, things like that.
Clinical research, research about even research about medical school, research about students and policies and how they affect the education experience, research about patient experience. I mean, there's so many areas that I think you don't need to do bench science for. So we don't know bench versus clinical for Cuddles.
Yeah.
Also, kind of going back to the main, cause of concern is that they mentioned that the main thing that they thought was wrong was a low MCAT score. But, I mean, there's 3 M1s on the call that we've all applied, and we've all been told a billion times that, a low MCAT score isn't enough to rule you out of places. They can get you, in the door for a lot of places, but there's a lot more to an application than just an MCAT.
Right.
So I know, for example, at CCOM, you can go to the admissions committee and ask why you were rejected. And get some personalized feedback, because if you're saying that the MCAT score is low and it's not going up with enough practice, then maybe start to look at other ways to improve your resume, whether it be, more research, more volunteering, more clinical hours, just better essays or better reasons why. Then there's a lot of ways to improve an application. So maybe if you're just unwilling to quote unquote settle for a DO school, there's many ways to get into those top tier MD schools without having an extremely high MCAT, just by improving some other aspects of the application.
Right.
And this is what I was going to get into a little later, but since you brought it up, I did ask, have you followed up with the admissions committees? And Cuddles says that, he's got an appointment here in March, and he's got another offer to do that with one of his other schools. So I don't think he has it. I suspect he doesn't have enough information yet to really decide that the MCAT score is his main problem. It's easily identifiable as something that could be a contributor, but I don't think it's time to panic yet about your long-term ambitions. Also, we interviewed 700 people for 150 slots. Just because you didn't get in doesn't mean that your application wasn't worthy of getting in. There is a lopsided equation here at work. So as you said, Matt, the job at this point is to figure out how you can make yourself even better. And does that mean bring up your MCAT score? Sure. But there are other ways also that you can make yourself more of a standout.
And I think some of those ways are going to be even more attainable if the MCAT is a really big concern and that's kind of what's stopping you. Then some of those things that you might find more enjoyment in or might have a better time doing might be those things that can get you across that line. Where even if you don't touch the MCAT score, I know a lot of people they post the average MCAT score, but remember that half of the people at CCOM have a lower MCAT score than that. So there's people with, not perfect MCAT scores that are here that are doing great in med school. And I know a lot of them, for the reason that they got in was because of all of those other things that just check the boxes that AdComs want.
I think, places to look at it are how strong was your why Iowa story or why school X story, and how strong was your why MD story as opposed to physician assistant or any number of other jobs that you could get in healthcare. If those stories weren't compelling, then that could be why your application got so make sure that you're examining that as well as the sort of easier to look at things like my scores and my grades and all that kind of stuff as to why you might not have gotten in.
One other thing on the score as well. I think one thing that a lot of people struggle with that they might not realize until they get into a pressure situation like medical school is, really struggling with test anxiety and things like that. So maybe Cuddles can really look at why he's struggling with MCAT scores and what are some things that he can do to improve there as far as, how to good test taking strategies. Maybe there's like some anxiety there that's causing him to struggle. That's something I personally struggled with. And, it took me until board exams, which is a really unfortunate time to try to work that out. Yeah. I think it would really be advantageous to get a handle on that before medical school.
Yeah, at some point during our back and forth, he did say that he doesn't test well, doesn't do standardized tests well. It's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of potential reasons for that, and anxiety could be one of them. It could be, I don't know if he's underrepresented minority or first gen or all that kind of stuff. Where we know that standardized tests may not work well for certain.
You're telling me the MCAT isn't 100% perfect?
Yeah,
I would never apply. I would never imply such a thing. No.
What?
That's insane. That's
it's interesting. During the pandemic, we've seen a lot of undergrad institutions ditch the SAT and the ACT. We've seen step 1 go pass fail, which is something that a lot of people have been asking for a long time. I mean, who knows what the future holds for the MCAT as far as a standardized test go? Am I skeptical that it'll go away? Yeah, I'm kind of skeptical, but also who would have thought the SAT would be, optional or whatever a few years ago? Who the hell knows?
I feel like if COVID didn't do it, though, nothing probably will.
Yeah.
They asked people to sit in a tiny room for 7 hours straight in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, but I think I understand the desire to want to have some sort of grand idea of this is your unbiased across all schools. This is a raw assessment of your science knowledge, but at the same time
it's not
right. It's not, and then you get into errors with is it actually accurate as assessing someone's capabilities to do well in medical school and things like that? So,
well, I mean, it may suggest that you'll do well in medical school, but what we know at this point is that it doesn't suggest whether you'll do well as a physician.
Right.
That's
right.
fair.
And so
right.
That's something that I really think it needs to be looked at a lot more closely. I'm sure there's smarter people than me doing it. Out of curiosity, I did reach out to, getting back to your initial point that there are DOs, I did reach out to UI hospitals and clinics, our teaching hospital, to see if I could get any numbers of DOs employed at our teaching hospital. There are 50 DOs at the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics, like Dr. Sharon Larson, who is a clinical associate professor of CT surgery here and who we interviewed in March of 2017. So you might want to go back and listen to episode. And some of my, as you said, other co-hosts besides yourself have worked with mentors who were DOs, Nick. And as you said, there are DO PhD programs that you can search for. I know that in Iowa, Des Moines University has a DO medical school, which does feature a research program for students. It's not a DO PhD program. And I'm certain you can find others like that where you might want to apply. And all schools, can be classified in terms of their focus on research.
Right.
MD schools or DO schools. Some may be very strong in research. Some may not be so strong. Doesn't mean you can't do research at those schools, but some of them emphasize them more than others. We have a really strong research program, and we also emphasize primary care. So that just happens to be our thing. So you can definitely achieve your goal of academic physician even if you're a DO. Absolutely. Which schools will best position for you is you got to do some research. You got to do some calling around, call DO schools, ask that question, and ask to speak to students involved with research at that school, and ask them, do you feel that your school is strong in research, or do you have other things that you feel you're strong at? Okay,
sounds cool.
Yeah,
right.
Sounds great.
Yeah, but yeah, I do think that Cuddles is in a little bit of a panic mode.
Yeah.
And I can certainly emphasize with that because I catastrophize, as I've said on the show many times. When I have very little data to go on, my first thought is, well, I'm a shit. I'm a piece of garbage.
Right. Well, I think also too, it's like one of those fundamental things where you have a plan. Yeah. And you've spent, X amount, I think especially with, pre-meds and stuff, you spent 4 years, like working towards a very specific goal, whether that be an MD or something, and now you're suddenly having to reevaluate that.
It must be particularly, I don't know, like it's always demoralizing to fail at something that you set your mind to. I mean, everybody fails. And, of course, it's always a problem, but, to not achieve your goal, I won't say fail, to not achieve your goal at what appears to be the first hurdle,
right,
is, got to be particularly galling.
Right. Yeah. And Cuddles hasn't even failed. Right?
I know. Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of just reevaluating. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Cuddles. I didn't mean to say.
Yeah.
It's just a setback.
Yeah. And a reevaluating of, okay, do I need to go to an MD school or a DO school? Like, do I need to go to a top 10 research school, or something else? So,
but it sounds like he thinks he failed.
Yeah.
And one thing to note also is, like you, Dave, said that it's like the first hurdle, but also remember that, like, if you really were able to succeed in undergrad, get that GPA to where you want it to be, you've already had to go through a lot of things to even apply and get interviews. So you've already made it through enough hurdles to stay in the race. It's not like you should give up now or try to change your plan. Just see what you need to do to make sure that the next time you go through that hurdle, you have everything you need to get across it.
Yep.
Yeah. I think, being on the other side where I'm winding down medical school and heading to residency, I feel like I hear a lot of residency programs, maybe they outright say this or they kind of describe, the candidate that they're looking for as someone who has some grit. And I think that this could be a good story for someone to really demonstrate grit. And
you can't have grit unless bad things have happened to you, right?
Totally.
Listeners, if you ask us a question, it means that I don't have to make something up to talk about on the show, and the show becomes what you want it to be. So send your questions to theshortcoats@gmail.com or leave a message at 347-SHORT-CT. We'll talk about it on the show.
There are several of my friends that are graduating here very soon that applied multiple times, and now they're almost at the end of medical school. So
I did ask that specific question of Rachel Ahern, our admissions specialist. And here's what she said.
Throughout the past few cycles, around 20% of our incoming class have been reapplicants.
But yeah, I mean, think about the numbers. With 700 people applying for 150 spots, the number of reapplicants is not insignificant. You Cuddles are not alone in this. So take a deep breath, put your worries, see if you can put your worries on hold for a little while until you talk to admissions folks. Follow up with the schools that didn't offer you a post-denial consultation and see if you can convince them to do it. That's our big thing right now. That's all admissions is doing right now. They're talking to the folks that didn't get in on their in the last cycle to tell them how they could improve.
That's a great opportunity.
It is a great opportunity. A lot of schools don't do that.
A lot of schools do.
Another thing to note is I'm not sure what your plans are for reapplication, but given that the meeting is going to be in March, maybe consider not reapplying immediately. Take a little time to let it simmer. If there's really big things, give yourself time to actually be able to focus on those things.
That's true. You may learn, you were light on experiences, clinical experiences or meaningful clinical experience. What we don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That might.
But you're going to need time
if
that's the sort of thing that's true.
Right.
Then you're going to need time to correct that.
Yeah. I understand the desire to immediately sprint through all of school. But at the same time, it's like, at the end of the day,
you're still going to be a doctor.
Yeah, 31 versus
Someday.
33.
Yeah.
if you and honestly, you're getting to live that life while you're younger, and not have to do medical school at that time, and that's all been a blessing.
So what you're
live it up in your 20s.
So what you're saying, Noah, is that getting into medical school, it's not all it's cracked up to.
Yeah, my early 20s were my early 20s were actually meant to be spent inside studying neuroanatomy.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in our class that have taken those gap years that we talk about, and they have such like cool stories and cool life experiences that I went straight through and I'm like, I don't know, I just graduated and now I'm here. It's like, don't shy away from gaining those cool experiences that give you like a unique perspective that I know me as straight through don't necessarily have.
Yeah. There's this thing that I always hear about going straight through from undergrad to medical school. There's this thing I always hear that the advantage is, it's that much sooner that you'll be making an attending salary.
Right.
And I don't know what it is. I mean, that's truth. That is technically true. I freaking hate that observation. Like,
right.
I get it. It's a thing to think. Nick, you're big into financial stuff. That's not wrong. That's not wrong. But give yourself a break.
I think okay, it's something good to think about. So I took like a gap decade, but just to
not a gap, by the way. You had a career.
Yeah, I had a career before med school. I wasn't just like chilling.
Yeah,
but
he's like Fat Thor. He's just doing nothing, drinking beers and playing video games with his buddies.
I did some of that too.
They're not mutually exclusive.
But exactly. But you're right, Dave. Like if you take an extra year for medical school, I mean, you are cutting out an attending salary. But what I think like another way to think about that is, what are you getting out of different experiences? So like, if you're going to throw on an MBA, or if you're going to go travel across the world, which you can't do right now because of COVID. But
every time we bring up stuff like that, we have to put that little asterisk.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of different things that you could do that could be very valuable to you and worth, that extra time,
and eventually make you a better physician.
Exactly.
And person.
Yeah.
Not good enough. I need to be making money now.
Yeah.
Now.
And Cuddles has already, it sounds like, done something else with his life kind of before. He's not going straight through, right? Already? Or am I?
I don't have that information.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just making stuff up about Cuddles and his life.
Let's make up more stuff about Cuddles. He's sweet. His little freckled face.
So sweet. Just a great guy.
He's just a good guy, Such a good guy. I'd love to go. If I was a younger man, I'd go on a date with Cuddles.
Yeah.
Just send this whole thing to the admissions committees next time he applies.
Yeah.
That's all he needs.
Cuddles
be
on
like,
your AMCAS
hey,
ID
this
so
is
they
me.
know.
Hear this? This is me.
Cuddles is awesome.
Yeah. Good luck, Cuddles.